This is the Valo GT23 steering wheel from SimiCube. From the outside, this wheel looks like a pretty standard sim racing wheel. However, my goal was to fully evaluate its build quality and features and determine whether it's positioned to effectively compete in the growing market of high-end sim racing wheels. Your sim rig can be more than what you imagine, but you're going to need accessories to accomplish that. SimSport Gadget accessories are a must-have for anyone looking to improve their sim rig. They have hundreds of accessories including mounts for Govee and Hue lights, power brick mounts for all the major brands, headphone keyboard mounts, and so much more. They also have some great cable management clips to help you organize your sim rig. You can even customize the color to match the theme of your setup. Check out our affiliate link below and use promo code SimRacingDen to save 5% off your order. Thanks to SimiCube for providing this wheel for review purposes, but as always, despite receiving this wheel free of charge, I assure you that my insights, thoughts, and opinions are my own and honest impressions. So without further ado, let's get started with the review. First up, let's talk about pricing. The SimiCube Valo GT23 is priced between €974 and €1,078, depending on whether you include the optional SimiCube link box for connection. That being said, there isn't any other reason not to purchase this wheel with the link box unless you already have one. This would really only apply to active pedal users who would have received one with their pedal. In that case, there is no need to purchase the link box as you would connect it using the same one that came with your pedal. But if you don't have one already, you'll need to click the option to purchase this in order to use the wheel wirelessly and utilize the RGB lighting. I'll discuss how this works in more detail later in the video. This pricing is somewhat comparable to other high-end sim racing wheels, but I'll have more to say on this as we progress through the review on whether I think it's worth it. That being said, my expectations were high as usual for a sim racing wheel in this price bracket, especially given SimiCube's reputation and my overly positive experiences with their other hardware. The design follows the typical minimal SimiCube aesthetic, which I've come to appreciate. It has a very sleek, stealth-like appearance with just a splash of orange branding on the wheel's rim's center marker, which matches the aesthetics of their other products. The wheel features a 320mm Alcantara rim, and the button plate is made from black anodized aluminum. On the front, you'll find 10 push buttons, 2 rotary encoders, 2 thumb encoders, and 2 funky switches, all laid out in a symmetrical design. On the rear are 2 shifter paddles and 2 clutch paddles. You will also find a small power button and a USB-C connection for charging only. The whole package weighs in at 2.1 kilograms, including the quick release. The entire package with the SimiCube QR pre-installed is somewhat heavier than other wheels I've used though. Each button on the wheel has a distinct tactile feel requiring a moderate activation force, effectively balancing sensitivity with resistance. Overall, the buttons felt very good. The materials and craftsmanship reflect a no-frills, high-quality, and functionality-focused approach. Despite the lack of RGB lighting on the buttons or labels, the color scheme is limited to black, enhancing its overall sophisticated design though. Some may appreciate this, but some of you may think it's a tad bland. This, however, is a very subjective thing. However, the lack of labels here is a downside. While I do appreciate minimal design, not having a way to identify the functions mapped to the buttons does detract from the overall usability in my opinion. RGB backlighting combined with labels would have been a nice to have, but backlighting the buttons would have likely increased the price point and definitely decreased the battery life. The highlight feature of the Valo GT23, of course, as indicated by the name Valo, which translates to light, is the RGB LED rev and indicator lights on the top of the wheel. But disappointingly though, they do not integrate with SimHub. Instead, they operate using SimiCube's proprietary tuner software in conjunction with the wireless link box, facilitating connection to your PC. While this software covers all the necessary functionalities such as RPM indication, pit limiter warnings, flags, and more, the lack of SimHub support means that those that like to use or create custom LED profiles will not be able to do so. However, the tuner software does cover all the basics of what you would need, which I'll discuss later in the software chapter. Hopefully SimiCube will consider adding SimHub support somehow in the future through either a firmware or software update, as I think it would really increase the overall functionality of the wheel and make things easier for those that own multiple wheels and are already using SimHub as their primary software. On the back of the wheel, you of course find the set of shifter and clutch paddles. These shifters have to be one of the quietest I've ever used, but do have a very nice activation feel. However, those who prefer louder shifters may not enjoy the silent operation. I personally like to have a bit of shifter sound, but if you primarily use headphones when you're racing, you probably don't even hear your shifters anyways. Overall though, I really like them. As for the clutch paddles, they have a good amount of travel and resistance, so there's no complaints here from me. I like the design on the back of the pedals both for looks as well as ergonomics. I found them comfortable to use. As for adjustability, I do like that there are slots on both sets of paddles for precise adjustments of the distance to fit your hands. However, there is no way to adjust them up and down, but I didn't personally have an issue with the placement. The wheel, as I said, has a standard 320mm diameter D-shaped wheel and is wrapped in Alcantara, which is comfortable and provides a good amount of grip. I'm personally not a fan of Alcantara rims for the simple fact that they do wear more easily than a leather or rubber style rim. I was happy to see that SimiCube just recently announced a leather variant of this wheel for the same price, which would definitely be the one I would go for personally. One design issue I did not like, however, is the mandatory spacer to accommodate the shifters. This may pose a challenge for those who like to add their own extensions or different QR systems, as fitting other spacers could be a challenge due in part to the position of the shifter housings. But if you're using it with the pre-installed SimiCube QR, it likely won't be an issue. Thankfully, my ASR Pro rig from Advanced Sim Racing does have an adjustable wheel deck. I did have to pull the wheel deck closer to me to accommodate the shorter distance, as all my other wheels I've outfitted with the same size spacer, but your mileage may vary depending on your setup and your desired seating position. A notable feature of this wheel is of course its native wireless connectivity with SimiCube wheelbases. This is the first SimiCube wheel to introduce connection via their link box, which they say has better latency and should not introduce any signal issues with other devices. This also means you could technically use this wheel with a non-SimiCube base, but you would need to download and use their tuner software to handle configuration as well as change out the QR on the back, which I mentioned could be tricky. It's clear this wheel is primarily aimed at users already in the SimiCube ecosystem, and I probably wouldn't recommend this to people using other wheelbases for that fact. I explored all the settings in SimiCube's tuner software. It offers simple yet effective customization for LED configurations and other settings. You can change the style of the RPM lights and test the functionality of other indicators available, which include things like flags, ABS, traction control, DRS, spotters, and pit limiter. Again, I would have preferred to have SimHub integration here to keep things consistent with how I manage my other wheels. But I have no complaints on the usability of the SimiCube software. It's very intuitive and easy to use. Now regarding the link box, this is necessary to facilitate a wireless connection to your PC and also handle communication for the RGB lighting. You can connect it either via USB directly to your computer or by Ethernet connection, which I understand is actually more stable, but I've had no issues using USB. The link box is something that SimiCube moving forward has explained will be how future devices connect into their ecosystem, and I think it's a great solution. With its standard D-shaped rim, a typical GT-style wheel, I expected the driving experience to feel very familiar, which it did. The wheel's weight and balance made it enjoyable to use, although the extra weight did add a bit to the inertia. It also will likely feel better with stronger wheelbases. Even though a lot more of the modern GT race cars now no longer use a fully round wheel, the Valo GT23 aims to be more versatile for different disciplines like perhaps oval, rally, or road-going cars. The rim overall was comfortable in hand with or without gloves, but being Alcantara, I was more inclined to use gloves in order to properly protect it. However, even with gloves, you will likely experience some wear and fading over time, as is the case with most Alcantara wheel rims. Accessing buttons and controls was not an issue while driving. Everything is where you would expect, and including funky switches on either side of the wheel was definitely much appreciated. The paddle shifters were a good size, facilitating accessible and effortless shifts that felt good. However, the lack of backlit caps or labels reduced functionality somewhat. While most people could probably remember their button assignments, those who frequently switch wheels might struggle remembering their input mapping. I'm still trying to understand why this wheel didn't just include labels. Overall, in terms of performance, it's a great experience. While it doesn't reinvent the wheel, it ticks all the boxes regarding build quality, comfort, and aesthetics. While this is a very well-made and high-performing sim racing wheel, I find it difficult to recommend to everyone. Due to its price, I think there are many other options available in this price range. While they may not have native SimiCube wireless support, they might offer improved functionality and features, as well as SimHub integration. The minimalist design will appeal to some, but others may desire more. The absence of labels isn't ideal, and while you could source your own, it's not something you should really need to do with a wheel in this price range. However, if you're invested in the SimiCube ecosystem and you just need a round wheel with RGB rev lights and native wireless support for your collection, this still remains a solid choice. If you enjoyed the review or found it helpful, please do me a favor and hit the like button. It really does help grow the channel. Consider subscribing and hit the bell to be notified when I drop another video. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy your racing.